Good afternoon, good evening, good morning. I have often quoted David Coltart's book as regards Zimbabwean elections. In the book, Coltart says the election process in Zimbabwe is so flawed, so illegal, the only logical step is to withdraw. That cannot be disputed in Zimbabwean elections. I think this cartoon of Mnangagwa talking to the SEC chairperson summarizes it beautifully. Is everything in place for the election? Mnangagwa asks. And she answers, yes, Mr. President. You'd like to see the results. This is how pathetic our electoral process has become. This is an election process. You know you cannot win. It's so flawed, so illegal. We already know the results. 2, we also know that if you participate, you only give the vote rigging Zanu PF legitimacy. In his book, Coltart explains why he and his friends in the opposition have stubbornly continued to participate. He explains that the MDC, both sides, MDC-N and MDC-T, realized the election process was flawed. They tried to come to a coalition so that the two parties agree that they will not participate. But when that coalition failed, they decided they would participate in the flawed elections because they realized that the other side will participate, win the seats, and they wanted a share of the spoils. That is the only reason why they continue to participate. Here is Professor Jonathan Moyo explaining why Zanu PF rigs elections and how they rig elections.
Chigumba is the mother of the rigging, and Malaba is the father of the rigging, endorsed what the mother was doing. It is actually scandalous. You see, ZEC is not supposed to be controlled by any authority.
Yeah, it's supposed to be independent.
It is an independent constitutional body. In fact, independent commission. It's a Chapter 12 institution. But the ZEC did not run anything important. It never did. The computers were run by Africom. The registration, accreditation, and so forth were run by a CIO company. So between the CIO and the army, they ran the processes, the operations, using their instruments. Either Matsanga, who is actually active, she's employed, she joined the, not joined, she was seconded to the electoral body in 2008 as a divisional intelligence officer. Now she is a director in the CIO. As we speak right now, she's a director and she was congratulated and rewarded for rigging the 2018 election, and she was given a house in Borodale, a posh mansion in there. So there is a serious problem that whereas on paper ZEC is supposed to be an independent constitutional body that runs elections transparently, efficiently, and impartially. No, it doesn't. It doesn't, because it does not even itself run. The elections are run for ZEC by the securocrat.
There you have it. The election process is flawed. So flawed, the only logical thing to do is to step back. Why has the opposition stubbornly participated? The explanation is there. Zanu PF has been clever enough to know that as long as you give the opposition a few seats, they will participate in the flawed process no matter what. That is the reason why they keep on participating. Of course, they can't tell their supporters that we are participating out of greed. So they tell them some idiotic lies about we have got winning in rigged election strategies. And unfortunately, their supporters in their millions have believed these idiotic lies. I love playing this video clip of Chamisa insisting that Triple C was going to win the 2023 elections.
Makorokoto Zimbabwe nokuti hakuna munhu anomira kana denga raronga plan. Denga raronga plan, denga harifoiri. Plan yaMwari haifoiri. Ini ndatanga kugadzira cabinet. There is no way we are not going to form a new cabinet. There is no way we are not going to have a celebration. There is no way we are not going to have an inauguration. Let's start preparing for our inauguration. Let's start preparing for our celebration.
Of course, he didn't win the elections. He was lying. What is interesting here is ever since the participation in 2023 or the post-2023 by-elections, there's been very low voter turnout. It's pathetic, in fact. The thing that some people are failing to understand here is that the general election, the national elections, the 2023 elections, were the vital ones. For them to boycott the by-elections, once they'd given Zanu PF legitimacy, is of no consequence at all. The damage has already been done. Why did you participate in the main national elections? To now boycott, there's no meaning. Absolutely none. So ever since the 2023 elections, the by-elections have been really mostly a foregone conclusion, where Zanu PF has won overwhelmingly. Here is a video clip of the Epworth North Ward 6 rally. The voting is going to be tomorrow. The truth of the matter is, the by-election result, forgone as it is, all it is giving the impression that Zanu PF is popular. The opposition supporters boycotting these by-elections is a waste of time because it doesn't change anything. If you participate in the national election, why should you not participate in the by-elections? Doesn't make any sense at all. And yet, that is exactly what these people are doing now. What I think we have got to revert to is the argument that you participated in the flawed elections and you gave the regime legitimacy. And that is your problem. Here is Change Radio trying to give a rational explanation of why the voter turnout has been pathetic post 2023 elections.
Good evening, Zimbabwe and those around the world. This is Change Radio News. Today is Thursday, 31 July 2025. The news is read to you by Nyakasikana Rose Maponga. Here are the news headlines. Opposition struggles in by-election. Archbishop Kuti explains $2 million and a carved nation rebuff. Police warn against filming accident scenes. And now the stories in detail. Opposition candidates continue to perform poorly in by-elections following President Nelson Chamisa's departure from Citizens Coalition for Change (CCC). Despite growing national challenges, the opposition has failed to gain momentum. The party's absence from key races has left Zanu PF largely unchallenged, allowing it to tighten its grip. Internal divisions, legal disputes over recalls and fear of disruption nominations have crippled CCC's electoral strategy. Analysts say many voters are more focused on presidential elections, hoping they will bring real change. Change Radio spoke to Honorable Jefferson Chitando for his insights.
Since President Nelson Chamisa resigned from the condemned and captured CCC, all by-elections which those who support President Chamisa, who contested as independent candidates, they have failed dismally. They have performed beyond expectations. It was really a whitewash by Zanu PF. Although Zanu PF has got a lot of problems, there are infighting, mismanagement of the economy, looting, a currency which is unstable, and economic hardships. But people have not gone in their numbers to go and vote for the independent candidate. This is a clear sign that people have got hope. People have got the eager for President Chamisa to be in the forefront. If it was a presidential election, people would go in their numbers. So you would see that.
We can stop it there. I mean, it's a pathetic argument. Nelson Chamisa was in the 2023. And people went in their numbers to participate in those elections. And he still failed to win. Why? Because you cannot win an election process that is so flawed. The result is known ahead of time. It is a pity that some people are not paying attention to that. Because if they maintain Chitando's argument, we will see Chamisa participating in 2028 with not even one token reform implemented. And he will be promising his followers what he promised them in 2023, that he is going to win, that he is preparing his cabinet. God is in it. And where God is in it, it cannot fail. And we are back to square one. We really need to move on as a nation. We can't keep on repeating the same mistake. These election processes are so flawed, so illegal, you cannot win. SADC and the AU election observers condemned 2023 elections as flawed. What else do you want them to do? What else do people have to tell you for you to finally believe that you cannot win an election process whose results are already known before the election, the first ballot is cast? Yes, Mr. President, would you like to see the results? That is the reality of Zimbabwe election processes. They are that flawed. I think this present situation, one can only hope the apathy is because people are finally woken up to the reality that Zimbabwe's election process is flawed, that they cannot win flawed elections, and have finally accepted that they should stop participating in flawed elections. Because if people make the mistake of believing Chamisa in 2028 and participate in flawed elections, they will only have themselves to blame. Because as long as Zimbabweans participate in their numbers in these flawed elections, SADC and the AU will find it very difficult, in fact impossible, to deny Zanu PF legitimacy. Zanu PF has been very clever. They know that as long as they can bribe the opposition to participate, they will participate. And we know that Mnangagwa must have spent at least $5 billion US dollars in bribing various people in the last elections. This is the reality. This is the tragic reality in Zimbabwe. 5 billion US dollars. He is loaded. And he knows that he has got the opposition in his deep pockets. Chamisa and company will not boycott the elections, never mind how flawed and illegal the process gets. They will participate because they are after the few gravy train seats that Mnangagwa promises all those who participate. It's not as if the opposition do not know it. They know it, and they've admitted it. Our biggest problem here is the ordinary people themselves. They still believe the idiotic nonsense that the opposition can win rigged elections. After 45 years of Zanu PF rigging elections, you still believe you can win rigged elections. That's unbelievable. Still, we have to wait and see whether the present voter apathy is because the penny has finally dropped and people now finally realize the sheer futility of participating in flawed elections. Come 2028. Because if they participate again in their millions, then nothing will have changed. And as for Zanu PF will see to it that the opposition are well looked after. If necessary, many of the nomination fees will be lowered so that as many of the opposition are able to participate. In 2018, Mnangagwa created Pollard for no other purpose than to entice as many of the opposition leaders to participate. And it worked. Indeed, the US 20,000 nomination fee for the presidential candidate in 2023 was introduced for no other reason than to stop the flood of otherwise hopeful candidates who were hoping that they would participate in the presidential election and join Pollard and get all the benefits from it. The attractions to the opposition to make sure that they participate, Mnangagwa is well aware of it. And those benefits will keep on increasing to entice them to participate. So we cannot stop the opposition participating. But what we can do is make sure that the opposition supporters open their eyes and realize that they are not participating to change the result. The result is already known. They're only participating to give legitimacy to the process and to perpetuate their own suffering. It is unbelievable that 45 years after independence, we're still failing to hold free, fair, and credible elections. Because there are millions of people out there who are so gullible. They believe they can win rigged elections. It beggars belief how anyone can be so shallow, thick, and slow. Unbelievable. Think about it. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.